6 weeks before my sister's wedding, my mother blew up our family with her affair. At the reception, my sister actually thanked the man who ruined everything, while our father sat alone in the back, trying not to break. What happened next shattered the room. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Rowan, and I'm 29 years old. If you had told me a year ago that my family, once the most stable thing in my life, would crack open like a rotten foundation, I would have laughed. We were the family people envied at reunions. We were the ones who took matching holiday pictures, the ones who sat in the front pew at church on Easter Sunday, the ones who made cheesily coordinated group costumes each Halloween, but none of that prepared me for what happened. This is the story of how my mother's affair set fire to everything we believed was unshakable, and how my sister's wedding became the stage for the cruelest public betrayal I've ever witnessed. The family we used to be my parents, Harper and Jonas, had been married for 33 years. My father ran a quiet little bicycle repair business in town, a shop that smelled like rubber, oil, and warm memories. He wasn't rich, but he was steady, reliable, kind. My mother worked as a senior project coordinator for a luxury architecture firm owned by a man named Silas Ward, a silver-tongued, smooth-smiling, annoyingly charismatic man whose expensive watch collection alone could pay for a college semester. My sister, Taryn, is 31, 2 years older than me. We weren't always close, but we understood each other. We'd grown up sharing a bathroom, fighting over the TV remote, secretly eating ice cream at midnight with the freezer door cracked just enough for light. Childhood stuff. Good stuff. She got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Owen, almost 2 years ago. His family had money. The old money type that hides behind, "Oh, we're comfortable." From that moment, wedding preparations became a world of silk linens, imported centerpieces, boutique tasting menus, drone photographers, private venue tours, the whole package. Mom and Taryn dove into planning with the intensity of Olympic athletes. Dad funded nearly half of it, even as the costs ballooned far beyond what any sane person would consider normal. Every time he tried to rein things in, Mom accused him of not believing in their daughter's dreams. I remember thinking the tension would fade after the wedding. I was wrong. Around 4 months before the wedding, Mom started changing. Subtle at first. Then, not subtle at all. She bought expensive perfume. She wore heels to work, even though she always complained they hurt her ankles. Her hair appointments doubled. Her gym visits tripled. Her phone was practically glued to her hand. Screen tilted away. Notifications cleared instantly. At first, I told myself it was pre-wedding stress, transformation, adrenaline, excitement. But when I brought up the changes to Dad, he looked at me with exhausted eyes that made my stomach turn. "I'm trying to figure it out," he told me quietly. "I've been trying for months." He had suggested date nights, getaways, dinners out. She had brushed off every attempt. Still, I convinced myself they would work it out. The night everything shattered. 6 weeks before the wedding, at nearly midnight, I got a call. Dad's voice was something I had never heard before. Cracked, strained, trembling. "I need you to come home. Please, Rowan. Now." I drove so fast I barely remember the route. When I walked into the kitchen, Dad was sitting at the table, pale, shoulders shaking, Mom's tablet open in front of him. "I didn't look for this," he whispered. "I swear I wasn't trying to spy. It just popped up." The messages were unmistakable. Silas, my mother. 8 months of texts that read like a novel written in betrayal. Secret hotel meetups, plans for vacations, late-night confessions, photos, and one message that burned into my memory. "You make me feel like I've lost 3 decades living a life I never wanted." Dad's face crumpled when he saw me read it. "She said she's leaving," he whispered. "She's at his house right now." I felt like someone had punched a hole through my chest. I called Taryn immediately. Her response nearly made me drop my phone. "Oh God, does this mean the wedding is going to be awkward?" That was her concern. Not Dad. Not the implosion of our family. Not the fact our mother had obliterated a 33-year marriage. Just the wedding. "Can't they just act normal for a few weeks?" she asked, irritated. "We're already so stressed. This is horrible timing." Timing. As if affairs arrived on neat schedules. Dad barely slept, barely ate. I stayed over for days, just to make sure he didn't break down again. Mom refused every attempt at a real conversation, claiming she needed space to breathe. She sent Dad cold, clipped text messages like they'd been business partners instead of spouses. Things only got stranger when Taryn met Silas. Mom arranged it, and when Taryn came home, she was practically glowing. "He's so generous," she gushed. "He even offered to help with the wedding costs, so things aren't stressful." I stared at her. Do you realize this is the man who ruined our family? Taryn shrugged. The marriage was already dead. Mom just finally did something about it. I'm sorry, what? She deserves happiness, Rowan. Maybe Dad should have made her feel appreciated. People don't cheat for no reason. I felt something in me snap. Dad, the man who worked 6-day weeks so she could have everything she wanted, was being blamed for her affair. The wedding day betrayal. Dad still attended the wedding. I wish he hadn't. He only agreed because Taryn begged, sobbing hysterically about how his absence would ruin her photos and embarrass her in front of Owen's family. He said he didn't want to be the reason his daughter resented him. So he came. But not as father of the bride. He sat in the back row, like an afterthought. Like a distant uncle. Like a man attending a funeral instead of a celebration. The ceremony went smoothly until the reception. Then came the speeches. Taryn stood up, radiant, glass in hand, smiling like she had finally won something. She thanked Owen. She thanked the guests. She thanked Mom for guiding her through womanhood and showing her what courage looks like. I felt bile rise in my throat. Then she said it. I also want to thank someone very special. Someone who stepped in when things were difficult and made sure this wedding could still be everything I dreamed. Silas, your support means the world to me. Gasps spread across the room. Silas smiled modestly. Mom beamed. Dad stared down at the floor, blinking hard, hands trembling in his lap. I walked out. I didn't trust myself to stay without causing an uproar. Dad joined me in the parking lot 20 minutes later. Face blotchy, tie crooked, shoulders sagging. We should go, he murmured, and we left. We didn't stay for cake. We didn't stay for photos. We didn't stay for dancing. We just left. Where we stand now. Mom moved in with Silas. Taryn calls them inspiring. She says I'm being dramatic and refusing to evolve emotionally with the times. Dad finalized the divorce quietly. He lost weight. He stopped smiling for months. But slowly, he started repairing bikes again. He started going on morning walks. He started laughing at shows we watched together. He even started making plans to travel, something he had always postponed because Mom didn't like unpredictable schedules. As for me, I went no contact with Mom and low contact with Taryn. And honestly, life got quieter, cleaner, stronger. Sometimes breaking apart is the only way a family can stop rotting at the core. And sometimes walking away isn't abandonment, it's survival. 3 months after the wedding, my family existed in fragments. Like the broken pieces of a vase no one bothered to glue back together. Dad and I talked often, quietly rebuilding the kind of bond we hadn't had since I was a kid. Mom and Taryn, well, their world was spinning on a glittery little axis of romance, wealth, and denial, but cracks were already beginning to form. And unlike the affair itself, those cracks were impossible to ignore. Mom moved in with Silas fully convinced she was stepping into a storybook life. Gourmet food, luxury furniture, expensive wine on weeknights, curated playlists, silk sheets. For a while she posted pictures online, all filtered and gleaming. Cafe brunches, art gallery nights, concerts in VIP sections. But the truth? Silas was not the man she thought he was. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't violent. He wasn't a monster. He was something worse. He was bored. Mom quickly became another decoration in his already overstuffed life. A commentary piece for his friends to admire. A pretty accessory for company parties. A new chapter in his ongoing parade of reinventions. She had left a stable, loving marriage believing she'd stepped into a romance novel. But Silas lived his life like a man testing out hobbies. And relationships, unfortunately, were hobbies. The second shift, the money talk. Mom had been so dazzled by Silas's wealth that she forgot something crucial. He had no interest in supporting anyone permanently. The very moment her divorce from Dad finalized, she learned that his help with wedding expenses had been a one-time goodwill gesture. A gesture he offered because Taryn's wedding had been good publicity for his firm. One night, 2 months after the wedding, Mom called me at 9 o'clock. I didn't answer. She called again and again. Finally, she texted, "Rowan, can we please talk? Please." Against my better judgment, I called her back to make sure she wasn't injured. Her voice was tight and watery. "Silas wants separate finances," she said. "He says it's healthier for mature couples. He says I should be independent." I didn't feel sorry for her. She had burned down a 33-year marriage, and now she was crying because her affair partner didn't want to pay for her manicures and vacations. "I'm not the person to talk to about this, Mom," I said. Her silence told me everything. She finally understood what she'd traded away. Owen, for all his family's wealth, wasn't blind. He'd seen the wedding speech fiasco. He'd seen how Taryn sided with Mom. He'd seen how she defended Silas with almost religious devotion. And one evening, during a dinner at Owen's parents' house, things erupted. According to an inside source, Owen's younger brother, who messaged me privately. Owen's father told Taryn, "Your mother's affair was disgraceful, and your behavior at your wedding was deeply inappropriate." Taryn snapped. She defended Mom, defended Silas, accused Owen's family of being old-fashioned moralists, and stormed out of the house. Owen chased after her. She locked herself in the car. For the next 2 weeks, Owen stayed at his brother's apartment. That was the moment I realized something. When you support a person who hurts others, you eventually get hurt the same way. Mom's fantasy completely shattered one cold Thursday evening. She arrived home early and found Silas on the balcony, with another woman sitting in his lap, drinking wine. Silas didn't bother looking embarrassed. He didn't scramble. He didn't apologize. He simply said, "Harper, this is my friend Noelle. You're home early." Mom left with nothing but her purse. He didn't follow. Later that night, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, eyes swollen, makeup streaked, hands shaking. "I made a mistake," she whispered. She waited for me to comfort her. "I didn't. You didn't make a mistake," I said calmly. "You made a choice." She sobbed until her breath hitched. "I thought he loved me." "You thought he was an escape," I said. "You convinced yourself he was worth more than the life you had." She buried her face in her hands. "I ruined everything." I didn't argue, because she finally understood. While Mom's world toppled, Dad was finally healing. He started taking scenic bike rides every morning. He joined a weekend hiking group. He cooked more. He slept better. He smiled more easily. One evening, while we had dinner together, he said something I'll never forget. "Losing her broke me, but being free of her rebuilt me." He wasn't bitter. He wasn't angry. He was relieved. A man who had loved faithfully for decades now had space to breathe for the first time. Taryn eventually found out about Silas's new friend. She found out Mom was living alone in a tiny rental. She found out I wasn't speaking to Mom anymore. And then she cornered me at Dad's shop one afternoon. "You're abandoning her," she snapped. "She needs us. She didn't need us when she was blowing up our family. You're being heartless. And you," I said, "are learning exactly who you defended." Her eyes stung with angry tears. "But she's our mother, and Dad is our father," I replied. "You chose a side at your wedding. This is the consequence." She didn't respond. For the first time, she had no defense, no excuses, no righteous fury to hide behind. Just reality. Where we are now. Mom is in therapy. Taryn and Owen are still married, but the shine is gone. Their arguments are becoming more frequent. Their perfectly posed photos come less often. Because the truth is simple. When you praise the destruction of a family, you eventually walk through the rubble yourself. Dad is at peace. He goes on weekend trips with friends. He laughs again. As for me, I'm still rebuilding, still figuring out who I am without the illusion of the perfect family. But one thing is certain, when the truth finally came crashing down, Mom and Taryn were standing on the wrong side of the debris. And I walked away from it, maybe limping, maybe hurting, but finally free.